good. We're up and running. Hopefully you can all hear me. The levels look good. Well, we are on episode 21 of Space Thing, and I've been rushed. I'm actually in a hurry, so I'm a little bit confused, discombobulated, trying to sort things out. I'm still slurping down some tea, which I need to finish, really. And we've had some regulars in the chat already. Danicron wasn't first technically today. I'm going to give it to Kieran. I think Kieran's not had a first yet. Christoph, hello. Dragoneye, hello. Yes, we're expecting somebody to jump into the chat to talk about modulation of movement between frames. So if that person shows up, let yourself be known in the Twitch chat, and we can quickly talk about what's going on. And tonight I thought, because I need something easy, I've had a busy day today. I've been up very, very early. I've been physically busy at work because I'm obviously going to be taking some time off over the next few weeks, and it's the worst possible time to be taking time off right now. We've got big jobs left, right and centre. I've got staff moving about. I've got all sorts of things. Interesting stuff going on. We've got Magetsub is in the chat. There we go. We've got somebody with an interesting thing. An Owl All Access Pass. I don't know what that means. Jelly Shoes, greetings. Plush Amazoni, hello. TJ Smooth. Almost first. Yes, Nullbiter. Christian Sailor, hello. So I wanted something easy. I'm tired, and I don't want something too mentally taxing, so we're not going to be doing any sort of major restructuring, but I'm also aware that in the last episode on Sunday, we didn't do any code at all. We just did lots of chatting. So a nice easy thing to sort of pick off the list is I want to generate the asteroid belt today. And I think that's going to be an interesting thing because I don't want to just generate a circle of planets that appears somewhere in our system. I do kind of want to try and put some sort of density curve to them. We'll see. And also we're going to need a large number of asteroids as well. So we're going to perhaps test the rendering capabilities. Now, currently our render is very dumb. It just draws everything. We don't make any attempt to cull any objects that we can't see. So is now adding potentially 10,000 asteroids into the scene, I don't know how many we're going to need, is that going to be a problem for us? Is it going to kill our frame rate? I guess we're going to find all these things out. Pepper Paradox, hello. TJ Smooth is just saying hello. That's fine, it's okay. I need to put the last VOD on the YouTube channel. Gruffler is here. Hello. Gruffler left some more artwork in the CodeZone chat on the Discord if you're interested in that sort of thing. It's sort of this very sort of chaotic and busy kind of artwork. It's very organic looking. It's quite nice. I've got all sorts of new buttons popping up on my Twitch manager. I don't know what any of them mean. Alter is here. Hello. Yeah, so asteroids. They've got to be easy, right? Let's have a think about an asteroid. Asteroids are actually going to be fairly fundamental to the game because, yes, we're going to be mining planets and shuttling units of commodity around. But I do think you do want sort of a resource in space that you can go and harvest reasonably easily. We discussed in the last episode that actually resources on planets are going to be typically quite expensive. They'll be abundant and you won't run out, but you probably won't want to start your campaign by mining on planets because it's just too expensive. You'll probably need to start something a bit lighter weight. Maybe we can... I had this sort of vision that the game starts by your craft has unexpectedly fallen out of some faster-than-light travel and you've landed in this solar system and now you've just got to survive. With whatever you get. I mean, you don't get really a choice in how it's set up or anything. That sort of leads into this procedural generation thing. You've just got to make it work. And I think you wouldn't then typically go and start landing on planets straight away. Perhaps you would need to be a bit more prepared to just go onto the planets themselves. You'd have to make do with what you find floating around in the solar system. Pepper Paradox, I'm the guy who asked about elapsed time. Why is it necessary to modulate with it? Right, okay. It's important because your computer frame rate changes. So we've got an on-user update here. This will be well known to a lot of people watching, but it's not immediately obvious. Your computer frame rate changes. You might think, oh, it always runs at 60 frames per second or whatever, but actually it doesn't. It runs depending on how much stuff is going on in your game and what your PC is doing, and it's busy. So if you've got the classic formula, it would be, let's put some comment on screen here. If you've got something like speed equals distance over time, and you want to move something, then how much movement do you do per frame? Well, if you know the speed of how much you want to move, and you know the f elapsed time, then it's simply a case of distance that you're going to move that one frame is equal to speed times time. Ooh, hello. Didn't like me putting that asterisk in there, did it? So when we say modulate by f elapsed time, then per frame, you know that the amount you need to move anything is related to how fast it should be moving in the real world, or in pixels per second. Everything will be per second. And you multiply that by the elapsed time per frame. So the elapsed time that comes in the pixel game engine is in seconds. It's its decimal point. And so this will then, in some ways, it will hide this variability, but it'll also have the effect of slowing everything down. So the worst case scenario is if you've got, say, a position, and you want to update it by that distance. Well, that's fine, that's going to work. But let's assume you didn't have the modulation by the time. Right, so you didn't have this bit here. You've set this to a fixed speed, so every single frame your position is going to move by a fixed amount, and that might feel intuitively correct, but your frame rates change, they vary quite considerably. So your movement will also vary quite a bit too. And it'll look jaggy to the end user, they'll realise it doesn't quite work as well as you think it should. So we do this effect of multiplying things by time. Now, this will have the effect of also slowing down movement, because if you specify a speed of, say, 10 units per second, by modulating by this time, the position per frame will move enough to give you the same effect of it moving in 10 units per second. So if you wanted it to move 10 pixels across the screen, it'll take 1 second to do that. So it's quite an important technique. We need to do it a lot. And Speedy is here, good. Everybody is helloing Speedy, that's good stuff. Fearless Cobra, hello. Slice is here. Astral Grandma, hello. Yeah, time is time passed since the last frame, right? That's correct. So that's why I say it's not quite super accurate. Right? It's a bit of a hack. But it's a reasonably accepted hack. It makes an assumption, and it's actually a very false assumption, but it makes an assumption that on the whole your program will do the same thing frame after frame after frame. And actually it very rarely does that. More often than not, your program is going to be doing kind of the same things per frame, and then when you click the mouse button or you cause one event, that one frame has suddenly jumped, well, it's dropped down to about 10 frames per second. You just don't even perceive it. It's just, for one frame, it's a really big shunt of time. And that then, of course, propagates into the next frame, which is running at a normal frame rate, but the delta time was longer. So that's how it smooths things out. But actually, it's you can cause more problems than you're solving by using this technique. But anyway, it's reasonably established, and if you're not too fussed about super accurate physics, it's completely fine. And most games will get away with this sort of approximation. If you are using a physics engine, that sort of thing, then you have to handle time slightly with a bit more sophistication. Julian Nichols, hello. Shotgun Seat, hello. Mundro Britta, hello. Saucy63. Tarry79. Different Tarry, I presume, then. First time I managed to catch one of your streams. Well, it's a CodeZone stream tonight, and we've just had a little recap on why modulating by f elapsed time is an important thing to do. So I am now going to carry on with asteroids, and we'll do a little bit of modulating by f elapsed time in trying to make the asteroids work. And I'm not really thought about asteroids. We're going to make some of this up as we go along tonight, but I guess we need the asteroid to look like something, so I'm going to have a struct, which is very simply Asteroid Appearance. Now, we were discussing before that potentially the asteroids could also contain various minerals, mineable resources, and commodities that are useful in our system. So we might want a slightly more sophisticated structure. that determines what is inside of the asteroid. And I'm thinking that most of the entities that you can collect will probably have a composition component. Just the one, which is quite a large component containing how many of all of the variable commodities in the system does it contain. Most of those values will be 0. Perhaps we need a way of representing it in a sparse format. Don't know. But that way, at least you could interrogate anything in the solar system and say, well, if I constantly mine you or I take you, what am I going to get back in return? What if I wanted to go and technically mine an enemy ship, for example? Well, that's composed of titanium and glass and chemicals and I don't know, all of these sort of nasty Third World War minerals that we're not allowed to use anymore but really need in order to survive. So I think there's a useful thing to actually have a composition component later on, but not tonight. Tonight we're just going to try and plot a nice asteroid belt and get the asteroids to, well, maybe rotate a little bit. I guess we will have two types of asteroids. We'll have some that are in the belt and some which are just sort of scattered all over the solar system. Because I think you kind of need those ones too. Maybe they're the ones that are a little bit like loot boxes, I suppose. Oh, something just went ping. Just look in Coda. Thank you for the bits. Hey everyone, hope you're all having a good morning. Well, I'm having a good evening, and it was even better until I realised I've actually run out of tea. Can you mine my ship, Javid? Well, no, Dragonite, you still owe me 100 credits in Elite. How can I get information about the stream? You just ask. It's as simple as that, right? So this is a space thing. It's a project I've been working on. We're on to episode 21. There is on the One Lone Cody YouTube channel, there's a recap episode which sort of summarises the first 10 episodes. I guess I need to do another recap episode now. We've done a few more. And we're building what is effectively like SimCity or Anno in space. Are you going to procedurally generate all the asteroids? Yes. But I'm not going to procedurally generate the form. Tonight, I might be lucky if we draw them as squares. But because nobody has furnished me with a suitable asteroid graphic, I should just throw that out there. I know somebody did actually. I forgot the name. Hang on. Pull it up in CodeZone. It was 13 digits because we were discussing how the planets should be iconographed. Is that the right phrase? Is that the right word, or am I just making that up? Apostolisk. Damn, I missed the start. Well, yep. 8 o'clock on a Tuesday. That's POG. Good, I remember POGs. They're little cardboard discs. Now, there is an asteroid that 13 digits has drawn there. And it is in its iconic form. But I think we need actually something that represents asteroids in the more variable form. And I don't know what that's going to be yet. But I wouldn't mind actually colorizing them based on their composition. So there's maybe some trends and things that we can exploit later. Alter with the Alf Pogs. What was the Walker's Crisps alternative? Tazos. That was it. Tazos. You could construct things out of them as well. Anyway, I've created a... Where am I looking? Oh, yes, Asteroid Appearance thing. So we're just going to create another object. It'll be something that can orbit something. It's going to be selectable. It's going to have a size. But we need to make it look and be isolatable as an asteroid. Now, one of the things I don't really want to do is to have them selectable, because there's going to be thousands of these things. And given we don't have any spatial partitioning at all at the moment, that could really slow things down considerably. So let's just focus on trying to draw some asteroids to begin with. In the main game, I'm going to add to our create set of functions. Where have they gone? Excuse me. We'll create a create asteroid. In fact, I'm just going to copy. We'll have a create. The radius, yeah, okay, we'll put in a radius. The surface. Possibly the colour, although that's a tinted texture pair. And the thing that it's going to rotate around. So I'm just trying to think which one is the easiest one to rip off here. Probably create planet. So create asteroid. We don't really need to give it a primary, I suppose, because it's always going to be the sun. But I don't have a way of isolating the sun as such. There is no sun entity. Now, because I'm going to give it an orbital component, then it's going to have something that it orbits around. So I'm going to pass into it the sun here, or at least the central star for the system. We're going to pass in, yes, a radius and a distance. Yeah, we'll definitely need a theta, which is the angle, because even though we've sort of shot everything else directly... oh no, we did random. We made them random, didn't we? Then we've got the texture for the surface. Good, that's all we need. Okay. Quick actions and refactoring. Going to throw that in. Where's it actually put that? Let's put that in loaders. I don't know how it knows to put it in the right file, but it does. It knew to put it in a separate file. And we said it's very similar to create planet. So let's start by taking the create planet code. We'll call it asteroid, and I'll just catch up with the chats in a second. Let me just finish this little bit of coding. So we're going to create, it's got a physical volume, the radius we've not really specified. It's going to have an asteroid appearance component, which only has the one texture. I'm not going to make them selectable. It's going to need a position. It exists somewhere in the universe. I guess that's the end of that sentence, really. I can't carry that on. And it's going to have an orbital, but the orbital is going to be the primary. Yep, so all of that stays the same. So that's one of the things I'm enjoying about the ECS system is it is actually quite easy to add new stuff. Right, let's have a quick look at the chat. So everybody's still talking about POGs. Is this built entirely from C++? Yes, it is. It's all C++. Slice and Dice has added an asteroid graphic. Okay, yeah, we'll, excuse me, we'll pinch and load that. Is it OpenGL? Fundamentally, yes, but it works using a technology called the OLC Pixel Game Engine to render everything in real time. We can take a look, actually, because I think we're at a safe point to compile and just see what does it actually look like, because I think there's a few new people in the chat tonight, so they've probably not even seen what this can do. I should always start these streams with the engine actually running. At least that way I know it's working from a compilable state. Doing a lot of compiling. Right, so we've got planets and moons, and we've got our sun, and if we go into the planets, there we go. Oh, I'm going to take off these drawing of the orbital circles as well, because I don't want that sort of influencing any performance calculations that we're going to be doing today. And just for those that are new tonight, for some reason episode 21, you can select a planet, and from the planet the idea is that we're going to be placing several different objects that have functionality, and you can select these objects, and these objects are actually space stations, and we're going to construct them, and the nature of the space station has lots of different functions and forms about it. So, you know, if we wanted to add power cells, and maybe the physical shape of the space station might affect how efficiently it can perform operations. Undecided yet. It's making a lot of this up as we go along. So yeah, let's get rid of those orbital circles now, because they're just a pain, really. Draw circle, that one. That's just really causing us all sorts of problems. That's render moons. Render... Really, I should have anything that's orbital path. In fact, is that what I should have done? What have I actually just took out there? Take the primary... Oh yeah, and the orbit distance. Yes, that was the right one. So moons we don't want to draw the orbital path for. And planets we don't want to draw the orbital path for. Satellites, for the time being, I'm going to leave them on for satellites, because at least that way we can easily tell which planet the satellite adjusts to. But I'll probably change that to just a line at some point. Render space stations. Did we ever actually see these? No, we never saw the space station's orbital path, did we? No, okay. That's why we didn't see it. No circle there. Dandestein is here, so we can officially start now. Good. Oh, we've got a redeemed highlight my message. check CodeZone on Discord. Is that the highlight my message? Yes, okay. So we have a dedicated chat on the Discord. There's got some sort of assets and things going on. And I understand now. It's all clicking together. Sorry, Slice, being a bit slow. Yes, you've put some graphics on there, and we'll have a look at that in a moment. Trash off Twitch. Trash off Twitch. Sorry, it's very small, the text. I can't see it very well. Hey, how does rendering work in your game? Rendering is, yes, well, it's hardware rendered, it's hardware accelerated, because it's mostly all 2D hacks and tricks that we're using. It's fine. I can render at a pixel level as well, because I'm using this pixel game engine header utility. And I've decided, unusually for me, to go with an entity component system rather than OOP. So I can see that there's an ECS fan in the chat there. I'm jury's out. There are bits of it I'm enjoying and bits of it which are a little bit strange and frustrating. Did you try the Godot engine? No, I've no interest in trying other engines. Is there a difference in speed if you create variable every frame or once and just change the value? In C++, you wouldn't really be creating the variable every frame. It kind of exists just as the program exists. So there's really little overhead in creating that variable. But it depends what you mean by create. If you're creating something that's more sophisticated than, say, an integer or a float, and it depends where you're creating it, there's a lot more parameters than that. It's not a black and white question to answer. I didn't know you were an indie game dev. I've never considered myself an indie game dev. I'm having a go. That's it, really. I think this is probably the first sort of indie project I've taken in any kind of seriousness. The only downside is I only get to do it on these streams, and it's usually interrupted by a lot of chat going on the Twitch. The only reason, sorry, Arish Sharma, have you tried Godot engine? I have my own engine which I use, and it's completely sufficient for my needs. Most likely, yeah. There we go. Pepper Paradox is right. Don't need to worry about things like allocating a variable per frame. Right, so now we need a render asteroid system, don't we? That's the next part. So that's in my main up here. And I want to find... There we go. So because it's an entity component system, and we can filter basically anything that's considered to be an asteroid quite easily... we'll create a system that's dedicated to just doing asteroids. And it's going to look very similar to some of these others. Where is my graphics? There we go, graphics. So render moons. Yeah, let's take render moons as a bit of a prototype. Oh, I don't know why it moves so quickly when you're doing sort of drag highlighting like that. It's a real pain in Visual Studio. Sometimes it does it really slowly, and then it'll just go blip. Render moons. I'm sure there's a keyboard shortcut for selecting a whole function, I know, but it's not Vim. I'll use my mouse. Right, so system, render moons, asteroid. Oh, and if you do watch the YouTube channel a fair bit, you'll find this is quite different. The YouTube channel allows me to edit stuff. That isn't a isn't a luxury I have on the CodeZone. Right, let's steal this asset that Slice and Dice has stolen from somewhere else. And I do apologise for the cough. That's one of the reasons I'm running a bit late today. The cough is it's taken hold today. Been a tough day. The asteroids. Why is this file 16 megabytes? Slice. How big is it? It's not even transparent. It says 540 by 540. Why is it 15 megabytes? Well, I'll save the image because we'll save it in the thing. Asteroid.png. I'll just suffix it with Slice because I'm keeping track of who's been donating graphics. And of course, we do try and use all of the graphics and things donated. Well, this one says it's 540 by 540. I guess we'll get there. Where have I put it? Let me just try and find that file. So this one is assets. There we go. So asteroid slice. It's actually only 600 kilobytes, and the actual size of it is 540 by 540. Right, that's good enough. Good enough for tonight. So we'll change that to 540. We could probably make this a bit smarter rather than hard coding in these numbers, but for tonight it's good enough. And we've only got the one layer, haven't we, which is the terrain layer, which is not called either of those. What did we call it in the system? I've already forgotten. It wasn't even the system. In the well, it's just texture. E-texture. Good, good, good. So we want to get our e-text from a tinted texture component. Hang on. It's... right. We've got to start at the beginning, haven't we? Right, so we want to get the position component. We need the Asteroid Appearance component. That's what's throwing us out there. And we've got the fact that it's a sphere and the fact that it's orbital. So it's actually exactly the same. Now things should start to make a bit more sense. There we go. I'm not going to draw the circle, and I've got the primary... Yeah, I probably don't even need to get that information. So now that your camera is working properly because you've added realistic physics to it, you're complaining that the physics are too real. You need to add friction and damping. So the easiest way to do that is just to multiply the current velocity of your camera object by some... either you can just scale it down, or you can do it properly, which is to add to it a fraction of that velocity in the opposite direction. Or you could just always set it to 0 directly. If you just want it to be snappy, before you calculate the update of the velocity to your position, you can always just set your velocity to 0. So that way you only set your velocity vector to anything other than 0 in the event of a key press, something like that. Graphics, pool of planets. Now I guess asteroids is going to fall into that, so I'm going to keep you... And the tint we've not sorted out yet at all. Right, so we know that we're not going to have atmospheres, and I'll just comment that line out for the time being. It's obviously going to draw an A or something where the asteroid is, but I've got a feeling that might start to look a bit cluttered. We need to experiment. But first we need to now load in the asset that we've just been kindly donated by, or kindly stolen by, Slice and Dice, and donated to the stream. Right, where am I loading my assets? I've already forgotten. Is it in loaders? I think it's in loaders. Pool planets. There we go. So, asteroid. I'll just call it asteroid text for the time being. We'll add that to the graphics pool, assets, and this was asteroid slice.png. We'll just keep it white shaded for the time being, and now we should be able to very simply add in an asteroid into our system. Did we create the sun? Yes, so created the star, so sun actually exists. So let's just create a loop of asteroids. It can't be that difficult, right? How many asteroids is an interesting question. So I'm just looking in some of the other chats as well. I'm going to make sure I'm not getting any important pings. Don't get as many pings as I used to now I've shut down DMs, that's for sure. We've also got a spaceship been donated by Slice as well. 1 billion asteroids. Thank you, Danderstein. Yes. I don't think we're going to have 1 billion asteroids. But why not aim for that and think about what kind of systems we're going to need in place to make that happen? So let's pick some numbers. So for int equals 0, we need to give it a variable name, asteroid, and we'll say that the let's have a maximum number of asteroids, int n max asteroids equals, I'm going to pick 1,000 for now. Although I bet we're not even going to see these. But we're already starting to shrink the solar system. So when we first started out, everything was realistic scales and stuff. I just don't think that's going to be that interesting. On the whole, we've condensed our solar system. So actually the asteroid density is also going to reduce. Max asteroids. Yes, because I'm chatting and not coding at the same time. There we go. Asteroid is less than max asteroids, n asteroid plus plus. So we're just going to go through all of them, and we'll call our create asteroid function. Now we're going to, just to begin with, I'm literally just going to splat these out in a circle, and then I kind of want us to play with some of the maths that are involved with that, to try and make it a little bit more realistic. We also need to find a sensible place to put these asteroids, because as soon as we start, they're going to be overlapping planets and all sorts of things. So it might be necessary to adjust our procedural generation routine to actually give us some space for an asteroid belt, at which point the insertion of asteroids happens here somewhere. But we'll worry about that sort of detail later on. So I want to create an asteroid. Create asteroid. Right, the primary that it's going to rotate around is the sun. The radius is something we're going to have to pick, and we're going to have to pick a number reasonably at random. So I'm just going to pick, to begin with... Oh, sorry, that's the radius of the asteroid. Hang on, we do need to think about that. So moons are 20... No, moons are... Radius moon. Minimum random is the... I think we want to pick a random between 10 and 20 for that. So that's the size. Distance from planet. Now, for the time being, I'm going to keep that fixed, so everything will happen on a circle. So let's just pick 5,000. Then we're picking a random angle, and then we're going to give it the asteroid text, and then there's nothing else. Oh, hang on, let me catch up. Go big or go home? No, you're right, Dunderstein. Ezekiel, streaming is fun. Yes, it is fun. And hello. Pure improv. I'm planning to attempt a voxel engine. Have you ever tried creating one? No. I'm just not interested in cubes. I think there's, they don't catch my eye. You'll have seen on my important changes coming that I did actually show a 3D rendered scene, which was fundamentally voxel based, with some interesting shading effects too. So yes, I've drawn cubes on a screen before, but when people say, oh, you're building chunks, basically, you're building Minecraft. No, I'm not. I have no interest in doing that either. Don't type in all caps. Okay. Will each individual asteroid have its own pull on other asteroids? No, we're not going to do any sort of realistic physics like that. There is no genuine orbital mechanics going on. And we've discussed at length in several other episodes why that's the case. If you start leaving things to realistic physics in this instance, eventually you'll lose control of them. So we're keeping things reasonably artificial so that they remain under our control. Put this belt somewhere in the middle of the universe. Yeah, I think you're right, Danstein. We need to abstract it away, but I just want to see how far can we get with just drawing stuff today. And then, because I kind of figure that we'll have some sort of Gaussian function to give us a density distribution on a radial line emanating centered on the star in the middle. Because I kind of feel that would be a better asteroid belt function rather than having a discrete step function which sort of says, right, bang, here's a wall of asteroids, they just start. That can't be realistic, can it? It's just kind of got to have a density in the middle. And that's really what I want to sort of experiment with tonight. But first of all, we need to know how many asteroids can we sensibly draw, and do they draw at all? Because if it turns out that drawing 1,000 asteroids is going to be crippling our system, then we're going to have to start thinking about potentially some sort of intelligent spatial filtering to begin with. Which brings us on to a whole other branch of stuff to talk about. Right, so I've created my asteroid. That should be it. They're now in the entity component system. So all I need to do is at some point choose to draw my asteroids. I'm going to draw the asteroids in, well, technically all the states, but I guess I really only need to begin with. We can just draw them in this one. So system, render asteroids, and I probably want rendering asteroids to be, excuse me, behind everything else, because we're always going to get some overlap. I don't know. That's a decision to be made. Certainly behind the space stations, I think. Right, let's see what happens. Click, go, and see if it compiles. It's not that I find voxels sort of uninteresting. I think it's an aesthetic where people that aren't that artistically gifted can suddenly go, oh look, I can create interesting things, and I just feel it feels a bit late. I don't know why there's a random lol. Sorry, in the middle of the state there. Speaking of suggestions, any thoughts on the ones I put into the suggestions near the end of last stream? Oh, hang on, Christoph, you're going to have to write those in the CodeZone chat on the Twitch video. I can't remember those. There were a couple, weren't there? Because I actually sort of said one of them was pretty good at the time. And it's already gone. Yeah, if stuff isn't put on the Discord, it gets disappeared. I don't know how to make Twitch chat sort of be persistent either. What are we doing today? We're building a space simulation. Well, specifically, we're trying to put in asteroids. So that's what I'm going to have a look at. Right. So, well, okay. I can see a circle of things. There they go. So, I mean, the entity component system has done its thing. It's put a circle of little dots of slices asteroids. So, you know, that's how nice we've got to a point where that's took, you know, if I wasn't chatting and talking rubbish halfway through most of it, you know, we've added a completely new thing to the game there in 10 lines of code and no time at all. And that's really where the power of this entity component system has come in. So 1,000 asteroids is fine, but as discussed, they're all sort of on a perfect circle going around. Not that useful. And if I do select something, we've actually changed states. So because of that selection, I've now moved into a different state, and it doesn't choose to render the asteroids, which is actually not a bad thing to do, because I can see now that not rendering the asteroids, we're chugging along at about 800 frames per second, but rendering the asteroids is taking us down to about 450 frames per second. So there is a price to pay for rendering stuff, but I'm still happy with 450 frames per second. The asteroids look like they behave, and I've made them so you can't actually select them. We might have the AI do some of that stuff for us. So if we have a craft specifically equipped with, I don't know, something like bauxite mining equipment, it will go and find the asteroids with high densities of that particular commodity. Something like that. Ideally, I'd like the user interface to be purely mouse driven, so the user can very lazily sit in the chair and just click, click, click. Chronos, I've never put 2 and 2 together. I didn't realise you were one and the same people. Oh, okay. My apologies. Well, I think we discussed solar sails in the stream, didn't we? And yes, I quite like the solar sails idea. It's difficult with people not having the same names. I don't know which ones are which. Some of them I do, and of course that one will stick now. I never sort of put two and two together there. Right, so we know we can draw asteroids. Let's get them to be a little bit more interesting. 5,000 looked like an interesting place to put them as well. So rather than 5,000, let's take the first approach and just randomize them radially. So if I pick between 4,800 and 5,200, that should give some thickness to the belt, but it'll start to look less dense. And that kind of works too. This is why I wanted to add the letters on, because you do suddenly, for you guys at home, on the compressed stream, you probably can't see the asteroids until I start to zoom in significantly. I could put the little A character on, and we could start to see the densities on there. So let's just try that in graphics. Now, this will sort of slow down the frame rate a bit. Not a great deal I can do about that. Yes, we can add rotation. Rotation, we've not actually looked at on anything yet, but there is a rotation component. So there we go. So that's where the current asteroid belt is sitting. We have actually made a rotation component. We're just not using it yet, so nothing is set with it. But yes, we can add a rotation to them. I mean, they are actually. I presume by rotation you mean rotation as in actually, yes, clocking round some sort of center point. Yeah, I think that's necessary and probably randomized as well, just to give it some life. That's a good idea. Real asteroid fields are even more sparse. I can imagine so, but the problem would become we've sort of begun to settle on a scale for the game. So if I pick a planet, this is kind of the playing size that we're settling on. So if you start now at that sort of level of zoom, click away, and then go looking for asteroids. I've not got. I need to indicate zoom. So it's about 6 scrolls. It's actually very difficult then to find an asteroid. You might want, as part on the screen, you might actually want just a few more, just to say, yeah, I'm in an asteroid belt. It's not just something random thing floating in space. So graphically, it looks. I think we've probably had a few more. Right, so let's push it a bit. Let's go to. Let's go to loaders, which is where I create stuff, and we'll add another 0. We'll have 10,000 asteroids. And I'll get rid of drawing the A, or else we're just going to see a big white circle. Will you cheat and slap in box 2D at some point? No, I don't think so. Right, so this is now 10,000 asteroids. Oh, excuse me. And, well, I mean, it's rendering it. We're now about 100 frames per second. And, of course, it's still attempting to try and draw all of these asteroids. They are being culled. So this would be... We're not even doing the most basic checks of is it on the screen or not before we try and draw it. So there's probably some performance to be saved. But 10,000 doesn't look bad at all, does it? I mean, that's kind of a nice density. But what I wanted to try was to, now we've got sort of, we know how many, to sort of give it a probability distribution instead of just a uniform random number. So try and get a denser line of asteroids in the middle, and they get less dense as they spread out from the center of that line. We have astronomical units in scrolls. Normal distribution from random. Yeah, we could do. Twitch provides a way to get adjacent to the viewer list. Why does it have to be adjacent? Well, it's if you end up doing your own bots and things, you can just ping it with the right IRC command, and it comes back with just a text list separated with commas, I think. Well, would the asteroids be moving at different speeds? I don't think so. Okay, now, do we want to delve into the random library? I'm going to say, for now, no, because I don't know what the syntax is, and I'm going to have to Google it, and it's all be embarrassing because people would assume I know that sort of thing. So instead, I think we'll just play with the number here a bit. How do I turn this into, say, a normal or a binomial distribution? Come on, community, this is where you got to help me out. It's just the addition of two random generations, isn't it? So if we randomly generated between minus 200 and plus 200, there's code on Discord to integrate your distribution into standard random. Okay. Well, I can't find that right now. 50% probability. It either happens or it doesn't. Works for me. Isn't there a function? So yeah, we've just said it's digging out all the standard random syntax. It's awful, and then working out the random device and setting all that up. When really all we need is just something to give us a hump between these values. So I think we want something like. I'm going to Google it. I'm going to Google it. We want. Let's go nuts. Let's do it as. Let's do it as a Gaussian function because I think we're going to be using Gaussian functions all over the place. With this. I'm just trying to. Sorry, I will bring this on stream. So what I'm looking at is a Gaussian function, but I was expecting to have a nice little graph. There we go. So we can see we're centered around a center point, and we specify sort of a standard deviation from that point. And we'll get a nice spread. Now, the reason I think it might be useful to actually have a Gaussian function sort of good to go is we use Gaussians a lot in distributions, particularly when we're going to want to start distributing resources around the world. Couldn't you just add the exponential with a random double as called normally? Possibly. Yeah, possibly. Right, Danderstein has linked to a gist here. Let me zoom in so you guys can see it. Jared RNG. Right, so that's the lemma random number generator. I don't know how this is helping. Oh, you mean I can just choose the distribution and it uses my my thing as the device? Ah, okay, right. I think I'm getting up to speed. Right, hang on. Okay, so we're going to use normal distribution then. Oh, it's just this. I just don't know what it is. We're going to have to dig into the documentation for this. So, what is a normal distribution? Doesn't exist. Right, standard, random. Standard, random. There we go. Pull up the documentation, and oh, it's that the one that nobody likes. Why can't it be the other one? I want the other one. Start there. That's better. Yeah, one of the help sites is good. This is the one I prefer. Pseudo random number generation. What have we got? Normal distribution. There we go. Which is our exponential function. It's our Gaussian. Normal distribution. What are the two parameters that we're specifying to? Firstly, what is the? So it's in the random. What is the? What are these two parameters? 5 and 2. What are those? Constructor. So the mean, so that's going to be our center point, and the standard deviation is a number we're going to have to play about with, I think. Okay, right. Got there. Got there in the end. Fine. We'll do it properly then. Julia Nichols has... nobody can put links in the chat, only because my YouTube channel attracts children as well, so we don't have links and swear words and things like that. So I need to include random, don't I? That's why this isn't working. Hash include random, fine, and I'm just literally going to paste copy the code from the website here. Grab you and all of you, right? There we go. Now, what Danderstein had posted earlier was, as I understand it, is basically we could use the random number generator that I've created as the random device, as it were, or no, as whatever that is. I don't know what they call this. What is that bit? That's the actual generator, isn't it? The procedural random number generator. Right. Okay. So I'm going to set that to 5,000 and that to 200 to begin with. We'll see what that looks like. And then we're going to pick numbers each time. Now, it's not going to be as quick, but we're only doing it once, so it doesn't matter. What did I call this? This was D. How do I get a number from it? D. Oh, this is why I just really don't like this library. D.gen. Yeah, it's just a mess. D.gen. Awful. Yeah, awful. Isn't it awful? It's almost as bad as Chrono. Rand was good. Right, I don't know what our standard deviation needs to be at this point, but we'll see. I don't think it's going to be that simple. Well, maybe it was that simple. So there we go. We've now got a band which is centered around 5,000 radial distance from the center of the solar system, but with sporadic asteroids around the outside. Now, I think that's a far more plausible looking asteroid belt. We might even want it denser still yet. I don't know. I'd like to think that we could do it with greater density, because one of the things I can do is batch update in the ECS. I don't have to update everything every single frame. You need to make a gen. Yeah, well, I'll pull that in, Danderstein. I think we'll pull that into maybe we'll even graduate into the Pixel game engine, perhaps. We need more asteroids. We want more asteroids. Okay, let's put more asteroids in. Let's do 20,000 asteroids. So we're going to start hitting some frame rate issues. But yeah, we'll see what this looks like. See how pretty it is. So the frame rate, 57. Now you see, that's probably a bit more like it. Might go a bit wider with the band, and we also need to look at how that's interacting with other planets. So the scale of the asteroids is obviously too big. I mean, these are planet-killing asteroids, right? So if I click on a planet, we're still updating the asteroids. So now that we've dropped to about 500 frames per second, it's still doing the updates, it's just not drawing them. So there's probably quite a bit to be gained by simply just not drawing the asteroids that we can't see. So perhaps we do need to think about culling based on the asteroid's position. We need to think of a smart way to do that, because what we don't want to end up doing is just another square root calculation for everything. Because don't forget, our camera exists in a weird space. So we're probably better transforming the asteroids, basically doing it in screen space. So once we've got the bounding circle of the asteroid, we can crudely approximate that with a square, and we can do a square screen visibility check, which will cost almost nothing to implement. And that can be a first pass cull of just making sure that anything, including planets, if they're not partially visible on the screen, then they're not drawn, except for the extreme corners of the circle. So that probably is, we're getting there. We need to implement that, I think, at some point. Just update those that are in your view. Yeah, let's leave it to the chat to shout out at least 20 reasons why that's a bad idea. Getting closer to 1 billion. Yeah, I don't think 1 billion is going to be some realistic number. We're definitely going to start crunching a bit. Pixel Game Engine's good, but so 40,000, we're down to 30 frames per second now. I can kind of begin to see that jittering a little bit. But hey, right, it's doing it, right? It's handling it. And one of the things we didn't really play with is we could have slightly different appearances for all of these asteroids. We could sort of have disco asteroids, couldn't we? How can we have disco asteroids? If we changed the tint component, that's going to change them for all of them. I'm going to change them for individually. If we go to update, that's being updated with orbitals. Maybe we'll have to leave disco asteroids for the time being. I don't think it's actually that trivial, simply because right now they're all sharing a resource. This is one of the downsides I've found with the entity component system, is that you can't have multiple instances of similar components. Sometimes you kind of think, oh, I really want to, but it does make you think about... sorry, sort of totally distracted then. More threads. Need a faster PC. Yeah, it's very possible. We managed to get easy gains in Raycast World, didn't we, Danderstein, by just adding OpenMP support to everything. If the stream lags, it's because of the asteroids. I don't think we'll make 1 billion. We can try. Let's try 100,000 asteroids. So now we're entering definitely silly, dangerous territory. So we're down to 12 frames per second. But, you know, 100,000 asteroids, yeah, sure, why not? Yeah, more threads did work in RCW, and it worked very well, but only because it's entirely CPU bound, of course. I mean, a lot of people will know that in the chat, but the Raycast world it's easy to parallelize because you can just split the screen into however many threads that you want. Slightly more difficult when you get down to GPU stuff. Yes, Magetsu. Now reduce the asteroid amount until you hit 60 frames per second. Is it a very efficient engine? Well, you've got to think in terms of the reality of what's being calculated here. I, of course, do think, yeah, you know what, it is efficient, but it's also efficient because it's easy to use. As hopefully we've demonstrated, you just draw stuff. So you pay a price for that. And the price is, in comparison to a modern 3D game, there's far fewer polygons actually being drawn in this instance. So in every asteroid is a unique draw call to the GPU. So that's firstly an overhead which you wouldn't normally have in this situation. But each asteroid is only 2 triangles too. So if we actually put that into perspective, 100,000 asteroids, 2 triangles per asteroid, it's 200,000 things plus a handful of other triangles for the other graphics in the scene. For a modern day GPU, that's not a big deal at all. We could probably get to 1 million asteroids and have sensible performance had we not used the Pixel game engine in this instance. But the Pixel game engine has provided so many useful things for us that it's what I'm going to stick with. We're not going to be running at this density, and I believe that as soon as we start to cull the draws, then we're not calling those draw calls, and so we'll start actually seeing some significant performance gains until you start zooming out all the way like this. And at that point, you perhaps call on a different criteria, maybe something like the size of the asteroid. If you know that in screen space the size of the asteroid is going to be less than 1 pixel, why bother drawing it? At the moment, we still are, even though even OpenGL will be culling it as well, but we still actually cause OpenGL to do that sort of thing. No need to do collision detection here. Yeah, that's one of the other advantages of Space Thing, is there isn't going to be any collision detection. There's no need to do that sort of thing, because we can assume you can fly up and down as well. So hopefully we don't need to go to that. Androthy came late to the screen. How are they represented in memory? They are well, it's an entity component system, so they are an entity with an asteroid appearance component attached to them, and then they just behave like asteroids. Right now they're all very similar. We do want to sort of break up the rotation a little bit. Make it a game about getting out of the solar system by calculating the right time to launch. There used to be a game called, what was that called? Pax Imperia or something? We had to sort of handle the gravity projections to try and get from one side of a system to another. Select a planet. Yeah, if we select a planet now, the frame rate will yoink. So you see, yeah, actually updating the asteroids is still not costing us anything, right? It is, but 200 frames per second I'm happy with. So this is really just GPU overhead. Now, in a proper engine, this is the kind of thing you would use multiple instancing for. You'd use a shader to handle it all, and I'm not going to go down that route. It's just not necessary for this project. I think we'll be able to get that performance back by just being a bit smarter about what we're doing. Yeah, I think we get some. That's a good idea. When we're zoomed out, like you get to a point where it's silly to carry on drawing the individual asteroids. At some point, it's got to become this map view with the overlay of the trajectory, the overlay of the orbital trajectories. And we were discussing that in the last episode. What should that look like? How should it look and feel? And I think you're right. I wanted to try and avoid a mini map, but we do need a system map. So when you're zoomed out this far, it'll automatically go to system map mode. Things will be represented differently. Oh, and did I show? I didn't. Maybe those that didn't see the stream on Sunday. One of the things that we added. Let me just throw in a couple of satellites here. We started playing with basic sort of route plotting around the solar system too. I put in a couple more satellites, we'll have let's have a satellite in a strange place. Let's have one up there, and we'll select you, and we'll plot you to you, and we'll go from you also to you. Need a quicker way to select these things. Go up to there. So we started playing with this way of just visualizing what routes look like as things are drifting around the solar system. Do you run any delta function for updating the positions? I was trying to implement something called DeWitter loop, which is supposed to improve performance. The delta function in this case, no. It's purely a circumference of a circle. So all I'm storing is the distance from the center of the universe and its angle. So there's nothing clever going on there. But we're certainly not going to be having this many asteroids, because it becomes this almost impenetrable wall. But I definitely think we do want to add culling to the asteroids. Oh, flipping it, we've completely overrun. Getting too carried away there, haven't we? We've gone to almost 9:10. So, asteroids, okay, easily enough to add. What have we learnt tonight? We've learnt that the standard random file is an awful mess and we should never use it. We've also learnt that I don't know the syntax to the standard random file, so perhaps there's a correlation there. We've also learned that asteroids, well, they work quite well. Slice has donated a nice graphic and it draws. The entity component system has handled all of the mechanics for us, so that's doing its job. That was quite nice. We do want to add rotation to the objects, so perhaps rotation and individual appearance of the asteroids is something for the next stream. Also, definitely the culling. I think we're getting to that point now where, yes, we need to be sensible about the culling. And there's a little update to Pixel Game Engine for 2.17. I've added in some clipping to a lot of the basic drawing routines. So things like lines and stuff in the past were always just drawn. Now they go through a small clipping algorithm. And that has actually stopped accidental stalls. It's one of the things I was experimenting with. I'm building and I'm always building these sort of hidden PegXs in the background. But I'm building a components PegX, which allows you to specify shapes, like we did in the very first console game engine. So we could specify the wireframe outline of something. It's just a nice way of working with wireframe graphics. And it plays very well with the transform view. And I've been using it to actually model physical systems. I've been using it for work as well, where we can actually sort of look at how different systems interact in sort of realistic spaces. It's quite a sophisticated thing. And for that, I needed some line culling, because when you zoom in and you zoom in on a line, that, as we saw with the circles, it's drawing things that are billions of pixels in size and not clipping any of them. So that should hopefully go away with 2.17. Have you uploaded an OLC Game Engine tutorial introduction on the channel? Right, well, the first place you could go to is obviously the channel itself. Many videos on how to use the Pixel Game Engine. If you go to the GitHub for the Pixel Game Engine, you can go to the wiki. The wiki has a basic sort of follow-along tutorial. Starts from the very beginning. It's okay. It's good enough to get you started. It talks about delta time as well, that sort of thing. And there's a few episodes to that. And I'm going to find myself with a little bit of spare time, at which point I'm hoping to finish off this, which is a handbook, sort of a getting started guide to everything Pixel Game Engine. And the purpose of this is to sort of document every single function, what it takes in, what it looks like. So the idea is it's designed to be printed. So you get the function and a description of it on one page, and on the next page you get an example of it being used, so you can look at the two side by side. And it goes through everything, every function. So I'm hoping that that's going to be a useful resource to a lot of people. So you can get in the sprites, and goes into the more recent stuff as well. So it goes into decals, and it tries to talk about sprites with decals. I just need to get some time to finish writing it. But the core stuff is there, including some of the more weird and esoteric functions too. If you search around on the Discord, this has already been uploaded a couple of times, even though it's not quite finished. Thank you for the stream. Yes, I think that is right. That'll come along with the CD-ROM of PGE goodies. Yeah, it won't even fit on a floppy disk, stupid PDF files. Right, I need to find where I've put OBS. I've lost OBS. There it is. Right, thank you, everybody. It's been a bit of a longer one tonight. We did Asteroids, so take care.